As a new eco printer, you may have heard people say that they process their bundles in a fish kettle. Well, if you don't know what a fish kettle is, it's a long, slim pot, and they are used in the kitchen for cooking whole fish. Many of my fish kettles are actually vintage ones, and this is no exception. It's actually iron and it's pretty rusty looking, but I also have a selection of aluminium pots and stainless steel. All of them are fantastic for submerging bundles in if you work in the dirty pot method without traditional powdered mordants. And you can also steam your bundles. And I love to do this if I'm doing tannin and iron reactions. Now, there are a few pointers that I think I will share with you because it's very easy to run into trouble using a fish kettle if you haven't done any printing in one before. Firstly, I would say it's really important to keep checking your pot liquid during the processing time, whether you are submerging your bundles or you are steaming them over an insert. The reason for this is there's very much less liquid in a fish kettle than a larger, deeper pot, and it does tend to evaporate quite quickly, particularly if the lid is not very tight fitting. Now, I find with the older fish kettles, this is usually the case. So, with this particular pot, for example, you can even see that the lid is not sitting that snugly on the base. So, if I'm working with this and I need to top it up with more pot liquid, what I actually do is I will top this up with hot water from my kettle, from a fully boiling kettle. Secondly, I advise you always having a dry towel, something to protect your hand when you're touching the lid of your fish kettle. Also, the handles on either end, or in the case of a larger pot like this, there's one large carrying handle and to hang it on a crook over an open fire. So it's important not to touch those metal handles or you're going to give yourself a serious burn. Usually there's plenty of steam released when you lift the lid off. So again, just be careful you don't get a burn from the steam. And I recommend that you use fire tools for lifting your bundles out of the pot, particularly if they're very long and heavy. So I'm just using a vintage old fire tongs that I got in a salvage yard to lift my bundle out. But I'm also holding the bundle over the pot liquid just for a minute or so to make sure that all the dripping liquid or anything that may have been caught inside my uh, metal pipe that I'm rolling it on has dropped back into the pot because I don't want to burn myself and I don't want to get hot liquid all over the cooker either. And finally, I recommend that you have a large metal saucepan or some sort of a container that you can put your hot bundles in as soon as they come out of the pot. Now, if I was working outside, I could just put them on the ground, but I was actually processing these bundles on a very wet and windy day, hence working in the kitchen. I do have stone floors and it's an old farmhouse, so it's not the end of the world if a little bit of moisture gets on the ground. But what you can't see here is that I do have a large aluminium pot, and I'll just put all my bundles into that pot, put the lid back on to keep the pot liquid warm so that if I need to leave any bundles in for longer processing, the temperature doesn't go down too much. So that's it really, a couple of short, quick tips about a fish kettle, and it is your friend. If you can find a fish kettle that's a reasonable price, regardless of what metal composition it is, I highly urge you to buy it.